Morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you all for coming out on this rainy day. It's Saturday, Earth Day, April 20th. Very excited. We look around the room. It's a dynamic group of parents, students, educators, administrators, local elected officials, and community. So our first annual parent and student conference here at the library is going to be a great day that we discuss and have some dialogue and some, get some good feedback from everybody. But we're also going to have an opportunity to learn about some of the moving pieces, whether you're from the community side or whether you're from the school administration side. So just thank you for everybody coming out. Just want to take a minute to acknowledge a few people in the room. We have a former school board president who's still on the school board, Ray Hudson, who's in the room. And as you will hear the panel that we have in place for today, it will come up. Let me get back to the originators of this forum today. So this event is put on by Norristown Men of Excellence in partnership with the Philadelphia Urban League, PA School Works, and Climo Family Centers here in Norristown. We are four advocacy organizations who spend a lot of time in the community. We hear and learn of the issues, but we also hear and learn of the success. So we thought it would be a great idea to bring Norristown together for something like this. So you will hear from each organization as the day goes on. So I will stop talking. I want to bring up our moderator who's going to be here. She is the CEO, Executive Director of the Philadelphia Urban League, Andrea Custis.
Thank you. Good morning. I am so pleased that everybody came out in the rain, because I know sometimes rain and snow prevents us. So you could be doing 50 other things, but you chose to be here. So what I do know about the people that are in this room, you care about education, or you would not be here. So hopefully this will be a fun day, but an informative day. So let me first introduce you to someone you might know. State Representative Matt Bradford represents the 70th Legislative District in Central Montgomery County and is no stranger to the issues affecting working families. In fact, not only does he understand the issues confronting our communities, but as an attorney, an activist, a municipal officer, and also a state representative. Matt Bradford has proven a record of fighting for the people of Montgomery County. Additionally, as a husband and a proud father of 4 young children, he knows that the decisions made in Harrisburg today have a real impact on our communities for years to come. He has taken the lessons he has learned while serving his community with him to Harrisburg, where he is truly fighting for the constituents in the State House. So with no further ado, let's introduce and have you come up. Thank you. Thank you. You can sit, I don't know, but you can.
Well, good morning to everyone. Andrea, thank you so much for having me this morning, and thank you for that introduction. I can assure you not all of that is true, but no, obviously it's tremendous to be here, and I appreciate so many people coming out in their Holy Week, on Passover, to be here. So for whatever holiday you celebrate, I want to recognize that and obviously wish you a happy holiday season. Now, I am so heartened to see so many folks here, because let's be honest, 10 o'clock, the day before Easter, a lot of folks have a lot of places they could be other than being here this morning. But when we get right down to it, there is probably no more important issue, whether it's in Harrisburg, where I work, or where Hakeem, who is one of our great city councilmen, borough councilmen, or Teray on our school board can tell you. There is not a single problem that we can address in Norristown, in Montgomery County, or frankly in our Commonwealth, without strong quality public education. And people that are willing to show up at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday before a holiday and to learn how to best advocate for their district, for their kids, for their community, for the future of our Commonwealth, that's heartening. That is so important. Let me tell you, it is someone let me tell you a little about myself, and I think it'll give some perspective on why this is really means a lot to me, and why I think it's so important what you're doing here today, and why I'm so glad that you guys have partnered with the Urban League and Acclamo and Good Schools PA, because this is the best way to improve the lives of our community. I represent 3 school districts in Harrisburg. Thanks to the wonders of gerrymandering, I used to represent 5 school districts. I've represented everything from the North Penn School District, a very diverse school district, but one with a very strong tax base. I've represented the Perkiomen Valley School District, a quickly growing school district, an ex-urban district that has all the demands and challenges of growth. I've represented the Methacton School District. I live right across Trooper Road, so my kids go to the Methacton School. Our school district doesn't have a huge tax base, but we have some tremendous affluence, so our district has challenges that are frankly not nearly as striking. I now represent part of the Colonial School District. Again, gerrymandering is an interesting thing. I represent the Colonial School District, which has a strong tax base and doesn't have the challenges, frankly, of a district like Norristown has. It's heartening for those who recognize that we need to stand and support our local school districts. There's 500 school districts in Pennsylvania, and the challenges that Norristown and districts like Norristown have, you are not alone. There are advocacy organizations, as you see today, from the Urban League on down. There are legislators like myself who represent diverse school districts who recognize there is something terribly wrong with how we fund public education here in Pennsylvania. One of the really cool things, and not to talk or belabor the point of talking about myself, this past year I was elected by my Democratic caucus in the Pennsylvania House to be the new Democratic chairman of the Appropriations Committee in Harrisburg. And when I was elected, my colleagues in my Democratic caucus, and God willing we'll be in the Democratic majority next year, they said, what are the 3 issues we're going to talk about? And I said, education, I said, infrastructure, and the issues that affect our cities, whether they're third-class cities, which is kind of what Norristown is, or the city of the first class, which we all know to be Philadelphia. Those are the challenges that so many of us understand. Those are the challenges that you deal with here every day. And learning how to advocate for those districts, and having elected officials who who frankly need to hear, not just want to, need to hear from individuals in this room. We need to hear what you have to say. And I'm glad that you're here to learn how to say it, how to advocate, how to be fighters. There's a dirty word. Now I realize I need to be holding this closer. There's a dirty word. Do I need this at all, actually? Can everyone hear me? Yes, I need to use it. All right. There is a dirty word called lobbyists, all right? You know what lobbyists are? They're paid advocates. They're people who get paid to show up in Harrisburg and fight the good fight. Well, you know what? No one's going to pay you. But you're going to get paid because you're doing right by your community and your children and your school district. You need to advocate for your district. So I got some notes here, and I'm not going to bore you with all the different ideas. But my office, I said, you know what, who are the best advocates? And they said, you need to look at this thing and that thing. And I said, well, you know what, one of the things as a legislator, people come in, we have a $34 billion budget in the Commonwealth. And people say, well, this is my niche project, this is my issue. The best advocates are a human face. Whether it's a smiling child, or a mom who's in despair about the quality of education that child receives. The best advocate is the people in this room. Being organized and articulate and educated on the issues that's important. Now again, when I say educated, you already got Dr. Dormer here. You've got a superintendent. He knows the issues of education. You've got a great superintendent. What legislators need is a face. They need an advocate. They need someone who they can say, that line item, when they go to the appropriations chairman and say, that obscure line item for, after school activities, that money is the money that's going to pay for kids to get the tutoring they need to get them to grade level. That money is the difference between kids making it to, maybe it's community college, maybe it's technical school, maybe it's traditional four-year school. That is how we turn around communities. And unfortunately, you're not going to have one of those paid lobbyists, so the Urban League, Acclamo, these different organizations do a great job. You guys need to be the tip of that spear. So, I want to thank you for being here at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I want to thank you for understanding how important it is that you take this fight forward. I want to thank you for getting educated. I know the Norristown Men of Excellence, and there's others that are going to give you some slideshows and give you some ideas of the disparities in education. But one of the things, and I go back to having represented those 5 school districts and 3 school districts, you guys need to explain that in one of the wealthiest counties in Pennsylvania, there are school districts like Norristown that are not getting their fair share. One of the things that you're going to learn about, and I'm sure someone's going to talk to you a little bit about the fair funding formula and how that plays out and what that looks like, and understand why your taxes are so high and yet your kids are under-resourced in terms of what they're getting. This is so important to understand. I'm going to leave you with one thought on this. There's something called adequacy, and then there's something called equity. Now, some of our friends will tell you in Harrisburg, what we should do is just redistribute the amount of money that's going to education. Steal from Peter to pay Paul.
Stop building prisons.
Well,
Yes.
that's one way to do that.
Yes.
But let's be honest, when we start pulling money from one district to another, the idea is, think of it as a blanket on a cold night, and there's 2 of you in bed, and that blanket ain't big enough. And you just keep pulling a little bit your way, and someone else then is a little colder for that. The problem we have is an issue. Equity is a big problem. Schools like Norristown School District, like Pottstown School District, like Hazleton School District, like Johnstown, districts that are similarly situated, yeah, we can pull a little more our way, and we should, and there should be an issue with the fairness of the funding formula. But we've got to deal with adequacy. How much are we contributing to education? Because, to the point you make, if we're not doing it in education, we're going to be doing it in corrections. We're going to be doing it in workforce. We're going to be doing it in welfare. Listen, there are a group of people in our political class who make a living of demagoguing those programs. But you know what? How dare they hold $1 back when we don't adequately fund education? The best anti-poverty program, anti-crime program that Pennsylvania or God's earth will ever know is a good education. So I want to thank you again for coming here and doing this. I want to thank all these organizations for coming together, give me a couple minutes to speak to you about how important it is. But I'm also going to say one other thing that maybe won't come up, and maybe as a politician it always sounds, I can assure you I'm not up for election this year, so it's not self-serving. One of the most important things people can do, though, is vote. People get disillusioned. People start thinking their vote matters. They start thinking, oh, it always works out where they're all the same. Well, here's the thing. Elections have consequences. Go turn on cable news any night for the last week, and you'll see elections have real consequences. Here's what I tell you. Showing up here at 10 a.m. on a Saturday means you've got the fire in the belly. Making sure you're registered to vote, and I believe the registration deadline is Monday. I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican. I have my preference, but I don't care. You make sure you're registered. Make sure everyone's registered. Make sure your voice is heard. These issues won't be solved overnight, and they won't be solved in one election. But they will be solved by people like you, of all colors, of all races, rich, poor, and everything in between, come together and say, we're going to start doing right by education. We're going to start here in the Norristown School District, but we're taking that message much broader. And you have allies and friends across this Commonwealth, and frankly, across this country, who want to deal with adequacy of funding here in Pennsylvania. So thank you again for having me here this morning. Thank you for putting up with the time. Thank you, Hakeem, for the introduction. And thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Let's give, okay, so a couple of things while you're getting ready to set up. I'm going to take 10 minutes to go over just some basics when it comes to Every Student Succeeds Act. commonly we call it ESSA, so we'll talk about that for a couple of minutes. But before I start, I would be remiss if I don't tell you who the Urban League of Philadelphia is. So we're a 102-year-old civil rights organization, and our mission is really clear. We do two basic things. One is social justice. We speak up and we speak out on social justice. So what does that mean? Things like education. The ESSA is a federal civil rights law. People don't understand it. It's not something nice to do. It is a federal civil rights law, which means there are things that are mandated that you must do, that you have to do. Another area that we speak out on is police brutality. I work very closely with Commissioner Ross in Philadelphia. We're getting ready to have a big job fair in Philadelphia. Everybody is welcome. There's going to be the CIA, FBI, police departments from all over, because I believe that if you do it right, you need both black and brown officers who look like the communities that they serve. That's very important to me. So we're going to make a difference there on May, I think the 4th. The 4th is our big fair. Another area that we speak out on is immigration. What's going on right now in this divisive environment that we're in now is shameful, it's disrespectful, it's a lack of dignity for human beings. So we're going to continue to speak up and speak out. A lot of different areas, everything that you can think of on social justice, you rest assured that the Urban League of Philadelphia speaks out on it. The other area is what I'll call economic empowerment. And what does economic empowerment mean? Here's what it means in Philadelphia and surrounding areas. Philadelphia, out of the 10 largest cities in America, has the highest level of poverty. Let me say it again, 26%. We have the highest level of poverty of the top 10 cities. And by the way, let me just tell you what poverty is defined in that city, very similar to everywhere else. It means $19,000 for one adult and 2 kids. Half of our poverty is severe poverty in Philadelphia. What does that mean? $10,000 for one adult and 2 kids. I don't know how you feel, but that makes me sad, it makes me angry, and it's got to stop. So I can tell you, we're doing everything we can to make a difference there. The other piece is that's really important for us is $7.25 for a minimum wage. What the heck is that? Who can live off of $7.25 an hour? So the 15 that we're going to get to, that's still not enough. It's better, but it's still not enough. So just trust me on that. We are relentless and persistent about that. So when you look at economic empowerment, the way you do that is first education. The other way you do it is jobs, 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 employment. So we have a really big workforce development initiative. The other area is affordable housing. Philadelphia pays the highest amount of money for rent, which means more than 30% of whatever you have is going for rent. That doesn't include food, utilities, and everything else in order to live. So we've got to figure out how to have affordable housing. We have a huge housing department where we do 3 things. We help people purchase their first home. We also go to court because we know things happen. We go to foreclosure court and we help families to stay in their homes. Anything can happen. It can be that you lose your job. It can be a health issue. So we know those kinds of things happen. And then another area is entrepreneurship. We have an entrepreneurship center where we help people to start up a business or grow a business. And all of this is also under the umbrella of health and wellness, just a little bit. So I'm going to rush through this kind of quick. So you just keep going next, because we talked about ESSA. Okay, so how many of you, because I just think the branding was better, how many of you heard of No Child Left Behind? Right? Exactly. Now be honest, I'm expecting total honesty. How many of you have heard of ESSA? My point, Aaron, my point, Tamia. So when you think of No Child Left Behind, just that alone, isn't it real clear what that says? It's like it's like the Marines. No one gets left behind. No child left behind. So the new that replaces No Child Left Behind was when President Obama in 2015 signed it. And so here's a little bit of what the difference is. No Child Left Behind was really focused, the intent was good. It was really focused on testing, right? So when we focused on that one area, there were a lot of unintended consequences that happened, right? People got fixated just on testing. And so it wasn't as effective as it could be. When you look now at ESSA, it's more about standards, performance. And so when you think about it, here's how I would say what it means, is that your zip code, your race, your family income should not determine the level or the quality of your education. Yet in the United States, yet in Pennsylvania, yet in Philadelphia, as you said, Representative Matt, it does absolutely have to do with your zip code. It does. There's a difference. He talked about where his kids were and where we are right here in Norristown, and your zip code does determine the quality of education. It does. We have a lot of work to do. And we're going to talk about why does that exist. And the young lady that's going to come up after me, Tamia, will absolutely explain it in terms of funding, right? We need money in our schools. They need to be funded correctly. So we'll talk about that. Next. So let's talk about when you think about advocacy. So for me, advocacy is something that just means why the people are here today. You're passionate about quality education. So what it says to me is a call for a change. It's hearing the voice of the people, the parents, the students, the legislators, and then putting all of that together and being really clear about what are our priorities and what's important to us. And I want to hear that today. So I want to quickly get through so we have the panel discussion, but I want to hear from the people in this room because you're the voices. What are the top 3 priorities? What's important? Where we go, it varies. We were in Yaton, and one of the areas that was really important to them, you'll appreciate this, it was safety. That it was like it was coming up as one of the main issues. Safety in the schools. Aren't we in a bad situation, a sad situation, that kids are worried about their safety? They should be going to school excited and being a sponge and ready to learn. They're looking around and they're worried about their safety. We have work to do. Next. So what are we asking for today? We're asking a couple of things. We're asking for the appropriate and more funding in the school system. Next. We have areas where when I look in Philadelphia, if I go to Lower Merion, and I go into Philadelphia and I compare it to the country, we have the biggest gaps in funding in those 2 areas. Am I right, Tamia? The biggest gap when you look at other states in the United States. That's bad. So what's the difference between equality and equity? I love this picture because it says it all. So equality says that everybody gets the same. All of us in here get the same. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand that. That's what we've always said, equality. That means we all get the same. But what we're using now, the lens that we're using now, is equity. What does equity say? So if you look at this little photo, it says it easy. Look at equality. Everybody got the same. Look, they can't even see the game, right? Look at that. It says it. Equality says, I give each student what they need in order to be successful. See the difference? Because all the students are different. We talked about it earlier when you said earlier, Superintendent, that there are kids who have special needs that you need to do more for them. There are kids that English is their second language. You need to do more. There are students who have emotional issues that are there, that are traumatized, and they need different issues. So everybody can't be the same, and that's why equity works. Next. Okay, so I really said that Pennsylvania has the widest gap in the nation between the highest and the lowest spending school district. And what's really sad to me, we should be angry as heck in here. And that is when you look at every state, we are number 46 in funding for our students. How much money we spend on each student. To me, this is sad. Do you agree with me? 46? Are we a state that values education? That's sad. Next. So when you look at national graduation rates, it went up in 15 to 16 to 84%. But the breakdown on that was 76% of Black students graduated, 79% of Latinx students graduated, compared to 88% of white students. When we look in Pennsylvania, we have a big gap. 73% of Black students graduate compared to 91% of white students. That's too much of a gap. So when we look at strategies for education, what I hope that we will be able to do is identify some issues that are important to you. It's what is important to you, not others. What's important to you as parents, students, legislators, people who teach every day. We're going to engage the right stakeholders. We're going to mobilize a network of people to make sure that this happens. And we'll really decide on what our message is, and we'll get that out. Next. Okay, and then this is just some information so that you have that you can go in. So Tamia, let me turn it over to you right now. So let me just say a couple of words about Tamia. I have had the pleasure of working with this young lady in Philadelphia through a couple of organizations, Pennsylvania Schoolworks, which is really a collaboration. I never know everybody's name. It's about 40 of us in the room. And everybody cares. It's from lawyers to legislators to nonprofits to teachers to all kinds of people. And we all share the same mission, and that is to improve education and also to make sure that we look at it through an equitable lens. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Tamia. You can tell them something else about you, but we'll let you do your presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Tamia Scipio-Smith. I'm the Education Policy Director at an organization called PCCY. It's Public Citizens for Children and Youth. We're located in Philadelphia, but we do a lot of our advocacy work in Montgomery County, Delaware County, Philadelphia County, Bucks County, and Chester County. So as you can probably tell from that description, we are in a lot of places at once. But our primary goal is to look out for the best interests of children. May it be in healthcare, which is where we focus as well, early childhood education, or K-12 education. One of the organizations or coalitions and campaigns that we partner with is PA Schools Work. The Urban League is also a part of our campaign, as well as Andrea mentioned, several other organizations and groups, and we're all working together to get better education opportunities for students. Oh, is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. So this is a quick overview of education funding and context to just put everything that the other speakers will probably be saying into context. So in the grand scheme of things, Pennsylvania has a very high GDP, or gross domestic product. So it ranks 6th out of all the states in the country. That means that it produces a lot. Yet, as Andrea pointed out, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the state contribution of education funding, it ranks 46th in the nation. Yet, our Pennsylvania Constitution says that it shall provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient public education to serve the needs of the Commonwealth. So the Pennsylvania Constitution says each child is entitled to an adequate education. So how did we end up in the predicament now where some school districts are funded better than others? Well, before 2008, there was not a big school funding formula that was in place that actually funded the school districts based on student needs. But in 2008, there was an implementation of a fair funding formula, which means that the state funding that went for education was actually allocated a little better based on certain things, like their student population, the levels of poverty, and whether or not there were certain numbers of English language learners.
Your clicker just
But in 2011, unfortunately, the education funding formula was taken away again, leaving Pennsylvania as one of only 3 states without a fair funding formula. All right, so in 2016 though, there is hope on the horizon as to how education is funded here in this state. And through a bipartisan, bicameral effort, that means House and Senate and Republicans and Democrats approved a fair funding formula. And I know I keep using that term a lot, and let me explain to you a little bit what it means. At the state level, there's a basic education funding line item every year that is funded. However, it's up to the House and the Senate and the governor to determine how well schools are funded. There's a big chunk of money that comes out every year that goes to the different school districts. For a long time, it just went in random ways that no one could quite determine how it was distributed among the different school districts. With the implementation, of a fair funding formula, all the new money after the 2015-2016 fiscal year, started getting distributed based on a series of weights, or weighted, ways that money went towards school districts that had the most needs. So it was the student population, poverty, English language learners, deep poverty, or like higher concentrations of poverty, and really, other different factors that said this amount of money should go to this amount of this particular school district based on what the student population actually looked like. So that's what happened. But the caveat is that it only goes towards the new money. So there's a bunch of state funds that still get distributed in a different way based on like 1992 data, and then the newer money gets distributed at the top based on student needs. So what you end up with is school districts that are funded probably more than what they need, and school districts like Norristown that get significantly less than what they need. And as the representative pointed out earlier, there are some advocates that say all the money should run through the formula. But essentially, there are a lot of school districts that would be hurt in that process because they're not getting enough funding to begin with. So PA Schools Work is the campaign that we are a part of that advocates for money to go through the formula as it's being distributed, but also that we fund the formula so that it can do what it was designed to do and actually help the school districts like Norristown that need more funding based on need. All right, and so here are some of the reasons why the school how schools are funded in the state of Pennsylvania, and why is it broken? So this is it, like at a lot of different levels and a lot of different locations, how a school district is funded is really and truly based on a local ability to pay. And so some districts that have like higher tax rates, a lot of businesses, and higher property values are able to better afford to contribute and make up for what the state may not be providing. Districts that do not have that ability are districts that are usually struggling to pay. And this again is another illustration of what's gone wrong in Pennsylvania and just how the inequality is spread out among school districts. And again, one of the main things that gives Pennsylvania kind of a lower ranking, or a lot lower ranking, in terms of its ability to fund schools is that, on average, there is a higher share of state funding going to many of the school districts in order to support education than here in Pennsylvania. All right. Here, this is the issue. There are, in other states and probably in the state, you hear always, or in a lot of cases, and in Harrisburg, that Pennsylvania spends a lot of money on its students. In the grand scheme of things, if you look at the dollar amounts, that may be true in some cases. However, when you look at those averages, what it doesn't show you is the grave disparity in how money is funded or spent in one district versus another. So you may have the case of a school district like Lower Merion, where you are spending about $27,000, $28,000 a student. And you may then have, right across the street, you're in Philadelphia, where you're spending an average of like $9,500, $10,000 a student, and expecting the same results. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. But in everyday situations, that's what we're dealing with. The expectation that children can succeed without resources. Okay. And these are more statistics that tell you about, performance and achievement, and really and truly why funding makes a difference. All right, so here, this is it. We know that when you have better funding in schools, results are, possible. And so when PA increased its spending 40% from 2003 to 2010, the test scores of the students in the lowest achieving districts actually increased 50%. It's not rocket science, and there's evidence to support this. Yet and still, there's a lot of pushback on adequately funding schools. So school funding makes a difference. And this is not just a study in Pennsylvania, but this is a study of a lot of states. It was a study that looked at data across like 24 states, and this is what they found. That when you fund schools consistently over time, and at the adequate levels, even if you have like $1,000 extra amount per student, again, sustained resources, with an effort to do so, you see a difference. And what would that mean for Pennsylvania? Again, in a lot of audiences, you're fighting an uphill battle trying to advocate for this funding and why it matters. So here we have like another estimate that was done with Temple in conjunction with the RAND Corporation, which is another big research organization. And it said that every year, by failing to invest money and not closing these performance gaps, this is how much money the state is losing every year, by failing to do that. One of the arguments that we hear again and again is that there's not enough money we can put in education, but if we did that, just look how much more productive the states and our students will be. So here we are in 2019, and the PA schools are still not fully funded. What do we do about it? One of the ways PA schools work and invest is this. When we started this budgetary year, what we asked for was $400 million in basic education funding, $100 million in special education funding, and $10 million extra in career and technical education. The governor proposed a different budget. Although we know that in order to get these gains and to get school districts with the money that we really need, we need these sustained investments, not just 1 year, but consistently over time. The governor made a different proposal. So now we're advocating for what he said to actually be put into the budget. So we're advocating for the $50 million that he's proposed to actually go into special education. We're asking for the $168 million that he proposed in new funds to actually make it through the fair funding formula. We're asking for the $10 million in career and tech education that I think he has put into the budget to remain there. So we're pretty much saying, for everyone who's an advocate, make sure that these things get into the budget. Because if we do not advocate for it, there could be cuts, there could be less, and then the school districts will not make it to where they need to be.
Okay, thank you. Anita, thank you so much. Can I ask you to also come to the table? as I sat there, I was whispering to people next to me. I said, if I were this audience, I'd have a whole bunch of questions for her. So let's get started. So I'm going to ask Nellie Jimenez to please come up. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for also bringing your constituents here. Christopher Dormer, who's the superintendent of Norristown. He has a very tough job. I would ask you guys to absolutely recognize that. We're going to talk about things that we can do. Also, Hakeem, will you come back to join us? And Matt, did you have time to also come up? It's up to you to bring an extra chair. If not, I'm good.
No, I
Okay.
may not be able to stay the whole time,
Perfect,
but
okay.
I
Just,
told my wife.
you probably need, is there another chair over there? Okay. All right, so let's start with this. And we have a little bit less than an hour because I think you're going to go over the checklist. Okay. Oh, I did, no, my sister over there, we just have shared, it's not Andrea, it's Andrea. We've already had a conversation about our name, so I'm gonna share a secret. Andrea, will you come up? So I'm gonna share something really crazy. I'm getting ready to change my name for the 3rd time. So when I was born, my mother and father called me Andrea. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, Andrea. I then changed it when I came to Philadelphia to go to grad school at University of Penn, and I made it Andrea. This is the truth. I have never admitted this. I don't know what this is about. I'm changing my name today. It's going to be Andrea. That sounds very sexy to me. Andrea. I like that. So I'm going to change it for the 3rd time. Can I ask each of you, starting with Tamia, can you just real briefly tell us a little bit about who you are, because everybody doesn't know everybody here. Just a little bit, like a minute or less, who you are. What do you do?
Sure. Again, I'm Tamia Scipio Smith. I'm an education policy director, but really what I like to say is that I'm a lawyer from Miami who decided to come to Pennsylvania like 3 years ago because I was so passionate about education. So I went back to grad school, got a degree in education policy, and since then I've been I've always been an advocate, but more intentionally because I chose to stay here and fight for Pennsylvania students.
Good morning, everyone, and once again, to share the same. Thank you for coming out on a Saturday and joining us today. My name is Chris Dormer. I'm very proud to be the superintendent of schools here in the Norristown Area School District. I'm getting ready to finish my 3rd year with the district, finishing my 1st year as superintendent. I spent 2 prior years as assistant superintendent for the school district. This is my 23rd year in public education, and I say that proudly because I was a product of parochial and private school education. I went to Catholic school my whole life and found a calling to come serve in public schools because of the opportunities that we can provide with our children. And really just, my individual calling was just that responsibility that I think we have as the adults to make sure that we adequately prepare the next generation to be the leaders in our country. And as Representative Bradford said, that's really investing in education. It's making sure that our children have everything that they need to go be successful when they leave Norristown Area School District in 12th grade to go on to workforce, college, trade schools, whatever that they want to go on to that's going to contribute and enrich our society, our community, our state, and our country. And I think that has always been my calling as throughout my educational career, now as superintendent, to really make sure that we have everything that we need to deliver on that promise. So I want to thank all the organizations here today for joining us because I know how passionate the community is about the school district and about education and wanting the best for our children, and there's work to be done. I think the first one that we want to seek out those opportunities to grow and improve, and certainly, I think we'll hopefully get in some dialogue about the funding that it's going to take for us as a district to be able to take those next steps. So again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning.
So buenos dias, my name is Nellie Jimenez and I'm the CEO for Aglamo Family Centers. I want to, before I continue, I want to recognize all my ambassadors from Aglamo. They're all there. Please raise your hands. United Aglamo. And They are all either students or parents from the Norristown School District. And we are organizing, we are working with our parents to be more vocal, to be involved, to advocate. And when I said for our kids, and not only the Latino kids, but all of our kids, because if we all have invest in education for all of our kids, we're all gonna be in a good standing. Because like my father always said, and he's there, education is the only thing no one can take from you. So we want to make sure that everybody gets the best education and the best opportunity to be what they can be and achieve their full potential. Thank you.
I'm not Bradford. I had my opportunity to speak before, so I'm going to pass, but I'm just glad to be next to Nellie.
Hey, good morning. I'm Hakeem Jones. Many of you know me. I'm going to take my minute or 2 minutes really just to share what makes events like this happen. So I wrote down a nice list of everyone that's in the room. Not everyone, but the folks who make this possible. So Norristown area high school young scholars are in the room. They're high school students, and raise your hand. Norristown area school district TV in the Iron Age Theater, Mr. Doyle, your crew is here helping us as usual. Norristown area high school Europe 3 program, Miss Yvonne Platts is here in the room, also engaging parents. And what's the Norristown event without including the community? We have a local DJ Swiss, former Norristown graduate from we have the Butler Caterer, that's Keenan Butler and his wife. They are also Norristown graduates, not business owners. I want to highlight my partners and my teammates with Norristown Men of Excellence who woke up on this Saturday. We have Brian Webster, Ernest Trey Hadrick, Kirk Berry, Percy Jones, and Terrence Ruffin. Most importantly, we have the elected officials. Now that we're all here, we have Council President Sonia Sanders in the back of the room. We have School Board Director Terry Hudson. Many may not be aware, but we have an election, primary and general election coming up, so you will have 3 new school board members. There's actually 5 seats open in our community for school board. I recognize 2 in the crowd that will be running, Monica D'Antonio and Sharon Mott. So really and most importantly, we have a lot of staff in the building. We have counselors, if you raise your hands. We have after-school program coordinators. We have front desk receptionists that work in the district. I think it's amazing when every piece of the puzzle is here. We have amazing retired professionals in the room, so I think the outcome of this event will be something special. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I am a woman that went from being a college professor, teaching English, to someone who is now an implicit bias trainer for police officers and educators around the country. I am also the woman who took on Abington School District and started a parenting organization 14 years ago that is still thriving today. It's thriving so much that in 2006, Harvard University called us and asked us to come up to show them what we were doing. And when I gave them the simple explanation that all children matter and that all parents should be able to do what they need to do for their children so that they could succeed, they told me I was crazy. In 2013, they called me and told me I was right. And so my role today is to let you know that not only do parents matter, you are the most powerful voices in any school district. I don't care what anyone tells you. And you are also the person that makes sure that your children will do well. And I'm going to show you how. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what I'd like to do now, Aaron, can you get that? A couple of things. I want to turn it over to the crowd to ask you questions because they're here. But before we do that, I have like 1 or 2 questions myself. So how do we take this and make it simple? You know, I have this saying, KISS, keep it simple and stupid. And that's not to offend anybody, but sometimes we make things so complex. So my question to you, and Nellie, I know you do this extremely well, so I'd like for you to start off with it and anybody else. How do we get parents to advocate? What are some things that you can just talk to us about to make it easy? Because we have people in the audience and they're listening. And I believe there are people who are saying, this is important to me. But how do I do this? No one's ever taught me how I do this. How do I advocate? I don't feel like I have a voice. I'm just one person. So can a couple of you respond to how do parents advocate?
So in Aclamo, we have tried to, thank you. Sorry, I have to scan. So I came to the United States about 24 years ago as an immigrant. And I really didn't know much about how to advocate or to do anything, you know, or was educated on the education system or in how to advocate, right? So, but I came with an education, and I wanted to make sure. I have always been a very a big mouth and social justice advocate for everything that I think is fair for everybody. So I think that one of the first things that I always tell parents is to shop. That's why I'm so proud of my community right now and my ambassadors that are here, because they need to shop and learn. And that's the first thing that I did for myself. I went and read and how the structure was done. What does that mean, a representative that is in the state level? What is the difference of what they do at the state level, at the local level, at the federal level? Who can make changes? Because not everybody can make changes. They can be your allies, but they may not be able to make changes in where they're sitting. So I think that's, I see a lot of misunderstanding about the roles of people and where they can make impact. The other thing is we think that we don't have the right, or we don't have that voice, and we do, because in reality, if you guys are going to vote, that's what legislators want to see. They want to see you, and you can ask them, because they count how many people are coming, how many people are sending letters, how many people are coming to visit, to ask for meetings. And believe me, they're not gonna eat you. You just have to be prepared. You have to get a couple of parents and a couple of maybe leaders and go together with them, and you're gonna start feeling comfortable. The other thing is that our responsibility is to, right now we are preparing civic engagement classes for our community, because we wanna help them learn what is it to advocate and where we can make the biggest impact. So I would say to parents, no, but I'm one person. Many elections are being decided with 1 to 10 votes. So go register to vote. Because I come from a country where you don't have much right to vote, that's why I'm so passionate about voting, and that's why we register voting, people to vote every day. This is our right, and it's our responsibility for our children. If you don't want to think about yourself, okay, but you need to think about our children, because at the end, they're the ones who are going to suffer the consequences for the choices we make.
Okay, thank you so much. One more view, and I can't think of anybody but Andrea, because you heard her say she was doing it so well, all of them, that Harvard said, what the heck are you doing? So can you respond to that? I want the parents to understand this is so possible. Nellie just talked about civic engagement classes. Can you just make it easy for us? So how do we advocate as parents?
So we start out by, look, there are leaders in every community, right? You know who your parent leaders are in the community. And so those parent leaders will pay attention to the parents that are struggling and go to them and say, I see there's something going on, how can I help you? And we work with the parents that way. We don't expect every parent to show up in the building, right? Because there are those of us who know what to do. So since 2003, I have been training parents, not just in Pennsylvania, but really around the country, and have trained thousands of parents how to be collaborative advocates. Not to go into the school and fight, but go into the school and be knowledgeable about what it is. That makes a lot of sense, right? Who are you supposed to talk to? Before you go to the superintendent, meet with the teacher. If the teacher doesn't work, go to the teacher's immediate boss. If the teacher's immediate boss doesn't work, go to the principal. And then you go up the food chain so they don't send you back and hold up the whole process. Do you understand what I'm saying? So those are the things that make the difference. And you always want to take an advocate in the room with you. So for the women that are in the Comm Society, all of them have gone through my parent leadership training. It's been 12 weeks, and we do it once a week for 12 weeks, and they learn everything from who they are as people, because intellect over emotion, judgment over evaluation, giving and receiving feedback, all those things are crucial to families, because when you walk in with the emotion, people tend to dismiss you. But if you walk in armed and have somebody at the table beside you who knows what the heck they're talking about, they tend not to dismiss you, right? I spent so much time helping children of color in Lower Merion School District get into the honors program and to the Apex program. They started hiring a lawyer when I come in. When you know what you know, and you teach it without looking for anything in return. All we ask is that you continue to help other parents as you move along the board. And I'm not just saying this off the top of my neck, right? They did it to my son. There I was on the Abington School Board. I sat there for 2 terms. And my oldest son was told he didn't belong in the honors system. And by the time he got to the last week of school, before he graduated, he had a nervous breakdown. Because all along the way, teachers were telling him, you know you don't belong in here, right? You know, because your mother's a school board director is why you're in this class, right? And so he never shared it because he kept saying to me, Mommy, I didn't want you to burn the building down. Because you know, it is what it is. And he's never seen me behave that way. But he knows as his mother that I was going to stand in his corner. He also watched me take on an entire police department and won after they broke his hand. The police officer broke his hand. So I am that mother.
Yes. Right. Yes.
We don't play those games. We give with one chance to give birth to our children. We have one opportunity to raise them. And this is our children's lives. They're not things to be just discarded and treated as numbers. And so he has since graduated from that school district, graduated from Penn State with 2 degrees at the age of 21, got a job with Apple, bought his first house at 23 3/4, and is on his way to buying his second house. That is what happens when you step in as parents and do what you're supposed to do, and not worry about what they think. Don't worry that they don't speak to you. Don't worry that they don't put you on committees. You worry about what's happening to your children and what's going on in the community. You start there, everything is possible. But folks don't tell you that. They tell you got to know X, Y, and Z. But there are people out here actually doing the work. And out of those parents that I've trained, 35 of them became school board members. 35. Because that's how incredible this training is. And it tells you, you have to learn how to navigate, not just for yourself. I tell people all the time, if you want to be important and have important titles, don't come anywhere near me. If you're about children and families and communities, and this is what you want to do beyond yourself, then come talk to me.
Thank you. I just want to say ditto to the advice you just gave all of us. You gave us use knowledge, use data, go through the hierarchy, do whatever it is that you need to do. We don't have to be crazy about it. We can get it done. We can get it done. So, Superintendent, and I have one more after that, and I'll turn it over. I'm sorry, Aaron's getting angry with me. But I do have some pressing questions.
Okay.
So, you heard the advice that Andrea just gave. I thought she did it's magnificent how she said to approach it, right? Because I know sometimes I can get real angry, right? But when you stop for a moment and you really think about how to approach things, you can be more effective. So I'm going to ask you, because I know they probably have some questions to you. What do you want from the parents? As a superintendent, there are certain things that are important to you, and you get to express that. What do you want from us as parents?
Thank you. And first of all, I do want to really echo everything that Andrea said as being important, that you've got to use your voice. And that, I think, is the most important thing, whether it's parents, students, everybody. That to me is what's most important. So, when you say, what do I want from parents, which is, first and foremost, is just be involved and be engaged. I think the minute that you feel that you don't have a voice, you've lost before you got started. You've got to feel that the school, the district, our elected officials are here to serve you, and that your voice is important, because it is important to us. And I think the unfortunate reality, what Andrea is talking about, is too many parents feel that the door is closed on them and they can't come in. Whether that is, because they're pushed back down the chain of command, or they're belittled in meetings as having a lack of knowledge, or whatever that is. but you need to be involved. That's first and foremost. You need to engage whoever you need to engage, whether again it's the teacher, the principal, the superintendent, your local legislators. You need to be there, as Representative Bradford said. You need to be that face. And I think what's most important that I've always found important is tell your story. Why is it that you are asking to be with somebody, whether it's the teacher over admission into an honors program, or you feel that a child's been wronged in a disciplinary decision, or you're going to fight for more money for the Norristown Area School District. I think when you get it down to that personal level, how it impacts you, that makes that you say to me as the superintendent, or a principal, or a teacher, or an elected official, this is your skin in the game. And I think with anybody that will approach you as a human being, as I always try to do, will appreciate where you're coming from on that very, very personal level. Then when you need that information, and on a second what Andrea said about having that information to go and to get things moving, that's where you need to rely on advocacy groups like ACLAMO, like PCCY, like Urban League, and to be honest, like the school district. I think one of the things that we're trying to do a better job of is communicating with our parents is, you heard a lot of talk at the beginning of this, talking about, fair funding. And as a school district, we do not believe we're getting under our adequate share at this point. Not even close. I'll throw one number out there that's, relatively safe. $12.1 million annually we're underfunded. I'm going to say the number again. $12.1 million every year the Norristown Area School District is not given that we should be to run our programs and serve the needs of our children. And you wonder why we're forced to raise taxes out above our index number. You wonder why we're forced to spend down our fund balance. You wonder why we're forced to, unfortunately, lay off staff for each of the last 5 years. That's why. That's part of our story that I don't think we've done a good enough job letting our constituents know about, so that you can have that information when you then talk about how that lack of funding impacts your individual child, whether that's with a principal, or it's with a superintendent, or it's with that state legislator. Because that type of personal story, as Representative Bradford said, that's what makes the difference. When Andrea said, when you go in with that information, that's when you get results. And I think, again, we as a district have to do a better job. And again, I think part of the opportunity today is to connect with many organizations that are saying, let us help you. Let us give you the information so you can go tell your story and get what you believe is right for your child.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, here's the toughest question for me, and it's going to Representative Bradford. Let me look at you in the eyes, and it's going to Tamia. So this is my number one question. And I can tell you, I can see the clouds over their heads, and I don't mean to be mean, but they're pissed off that they don't have the funding that they need. So I look at everybody up here responsible for that, but you two are probably the sharpest and brightest when it comes to funding. What the heck are we going to do? And I really want to hear from you. And I look at the parents and the kids. It's not right. It's unjust. It's not fair. It's sad. So what are you two going to do? Or what do you think we ought to be doing? I'm going to turn it over and let you think of some wonderful things to me. I'm going to put him at risk first.
What you're going to do is what you just heard. You're going to advocate. You can get angry, you can blow off, and then tomorrow, nothing happens. Or you can be persistent, and you can educate yourself. And you can really be a long-term advocate for changing the system. That means you get registered to vote. That means you vote. That makes sure that you get active and make sure the right people get elected. That's not a partisan argument. That's not a political argument. That's the reality of elections have consequences. There are now more school districts, to Dr. Dormer's point, that are losing under hold harmless than are gaining. The political equation, the math, has simply changed on that issue. Donna Cooper from PCCY is one of my favorite people because she's militant.
She is.
And I'll get myself in trouble with our governor. We have a great governor who's done a great job of reversing about $1 billion in cuts that we saw during the Corbett year. and you put up those numbers and you wanted 400 million. And he deals with a legislature that is incorrigible. And he's going to try to scrape, borrow, and beg to get 100 and, depending on whose numbers used, 168 million, there's different numbers, 200 million, depending on which word it's in. That is political reality. You change the political reality. That is your obligation. You love your children, we all do. You can blow off, you can be pissed. It'll serve a purpose, it'll make you feel better for a day. You advocate long-term, you organize long-term, you change the political dynamic, you create alliances. It's not enough just to have people in Norristown say it's unfair. Our good friends in Abington and Lower Merion and some of those affluent districts that I represent, Colonial and Methacton, they are your allies. They know it is unconscionable, it is immoral, it is wrong. So create those alliances. Don't just be angry. Don't just blow off. Be persistent. Create those alliances. Show people. Put that human face on them. Have them come and meet with Dr. Dormer. Have them go to Gottwald's and see what it looks like, what a school 3 miles away and the challenges they deal with look like from a district in Wissahickon or Upper Merion. And I don't begrudge those kids one thing, nor should we, but we should make sure that funding is equitable.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then let's turn it over to Aaron. I agree with everything that everyone has said, and we'll start with giving you information so that you can get in there and advocate. So PA Schools Work has a fact sheet for all 500 school districts. If you go to paschoolswork.org, there's a drop-down menu and you can find out what's going on in the district. This is Norristown's district, and you can actually see, what's going on and how it compares in terms of funding. And when you see how the costs have increased, but the funding at the state level has stagnated, it's really something to see. And you can look at it compared to any of the other particular school districts. The other thing I would say is join us in Harrisburg. If you can come and talk to your legislators, or even locally, PCCY is happy to arrange those dates, and we can partner with the other organizations to go to Harrisburg. And in fact, if you want to get your advocacy on quickly, we'll be there in a number of days. So here are our days: April 30th, May 8th, June 5th, June 18th, and June 27th, assuming the budget hasn't passed. So you're welcome to join us there. If you want to do something now, we ask that you fill out these cards to your legislators that you can just fill out, and we are happy to deliver to all of them and tell them what you want for Norristown and what you think education funding is fair. So we're happy to give these to you, we're happy to deliver them for you, and we have tons you can take to give to your friends and your neighbors to tell the legislators and the governor what you want and what you expect to see. So I think that one of the best ways to get everything changed is to use your voices. Tell your stories, get your children involved, bring your children to Harrisburg so that they can look into the eyes of the legislature and tell them what we have is not fair. We deserve better.
Thank you, Tamia. King, I would love for us to be able to have some buses that we go to Harrisburg and Norristown is in the house. I would love to be able to do it. We need to follow up. Questions from the audience?
I just want to say something.
Yeah,
Very quick.
Yeah.
Very quick. To piggyback on what she was saying, sometimes people don't come because they think, oh, they're gonna make me talk, or they're gonna, that because they can be very intimidated. I think that the best way is to go with the first group, with an advocate, like PCCY, go and be part of, the parents that are supporting them. Listen to what they're saying, and you're gonna start learning a little bit more and feel more comfortable about your abilities and your skills to advocate, to be more vocal in the future.
And we're certainly happy to work with you. If you want to take a group up, if you want to go with students, one of our most effective days was when we went up there with the Pottstown superintendent, Pottstown school board members, And the I want to say it was the student council, 2 juniors, 2 seniors, and we went to all of their legislators and they spoke up. Those students spoke up. And honestly, I think it was the best advocacy day in a small group that we had because we trained those students, we got them ready, and they told the legislators what concerns they had. And in fact, their funding levels went a bit up because they were effective advocates. And of course, we won't, if you don't feel comfortable talking, your presence is there. Usually what happens is after a couple of visits, by the 3rd or so legislator, people are speaking up and saying what they need. And also what Representative Bradford said about making those districts your allies, the districts that have funding, that's certainly true. And like what we're seeing now in Delaware County is that there is a resolution we've asked different school districts to pass related to fair funding. And William Penn is one of the school districts that's really, really struggling, as well as Upper Darby. Those 2 school districts spoke to their other school districts in Delaware County, and pretty soon we found that Radnor passed the resolution. Then Marple Newtown, I believe, then Wallingford Swarthmore, then all those other school districts that were affluent said, this isn't fair, this isn't right, and then they got on board. And so now in that county, I believe 8 of 15 school districts have passed this resolution asking for funding because it's just not fair.
Excellent. Questions from the audience? Questions, statements, hopefully questions. You have an opportunity to drill down. Yes, sir.
I don't need a mic.
Okay, I hear that. Give it away.
I think everyone has a part to play. That completes the whole. Just because we may carry titles, that really doesn't mean anything. The point here is that everyone has a part to play in order for us to achieve those things we need to achieve in our community. And the politics piece is so very important. So if you're not voting, you've got to get on board and vote. And understand these candidates, who they are, what they represent. That's very important for our very survival.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. I'm going to say 2 things on that because I have to as a civil rights leader. The first one is April of next year is the census. In Philadelphia, we just kicked off the census. So that determines how many congressional representatives you have. That determines how much money you get for education. That determines what happens with streets. That determines all kinds of programs that you have in your neighborhood. If you are not counted, you do not get that money. So I say to my black and brown sisters, and I know, especially to my brown sisters and brothers, I know that might have, with what's going on with immigration and everything, a huge impact. I will pray every day that you absolutely, guys, become part of the census. You have to. You will impact our funds and our money to do what we need to do. And when you look at the poverty, we are the poverty. We are the face of poverty. So I beg you to absolutely participate in the census, and I beg you to come out and vote. We're going to do everything we can in the urban league of Philadelphia to do the census work and also to get out the vote. I'm going to just use one example. We were in Philadelphia, in South Philadelphia, at Arden Reed High School, Kenny Gamble's high school, right? Amazing high school. And then afterwards, we went door to door to ask people, would they just come out and vote? As a 501c3, I have to be nonpartisan. So the only thing I say is have a voice, get out to vote. And I'm going to tell you, knocked on one door, and Aaron, you know this to be true, and it was a young lady. She was about 31. She had 5 kids. And I said, can I depend on you to go to the poll and vote? We need to hear your story. And she said to me, only God can help this. And I said, okay. The people next to me know I'm kind of, a little aggressive at times, so they were like, okay. So I said, okay, I hear you. Just like you, I went to Catholic school for 12 years, right? I crowned Blessed Mother. I wanted to be a nun. So, I'm all down with the program. I said, but I'm going to need you to act today. I'm gonna need you absolutely to get out the vote, because not to vote is already making a statement. And so I was not able to convince her. I said to her when I left, I pray that you pray to God and that you understand that you have a responsibility to these 5 kids to get out there and vote. So do the census and get out and vote. Next question, Hakeem.
So I have an important question. I guess it's for everybody. Being an elected official, I understand the process of voting. Understanding how you research your candidates, research who's going to be in place. But the question is, as residents, how do you hold those leaders accountable? How do you access those leaders when you need them? How do you get through the screening and the barriers to get to that candidate? So I would notice that we do have a funding issue in Norristown Area School District. But at the same time, we're the 50 out of 500 schools. We rank number 50 when it comes to salaries for the staff. So, looking around the room, I see some amazing champions of this district. They're the paraprofessionals of the world. They're the after-school coordinators. They are the brick and mortar of the district. How do you elevate those folks? How do you throw away the concept that they have to have 6 certificates in order to be rewarded? Because those are the first folks you lose, and those are the first folks the kids and the families go to. So I would like to see, not just in education, across the board,
Yes.
corporate America,
Yes.
municipal government. I would like to see those folks brought up and championed just as much of the credential folks. Just because you make 6 figures and you hold a degree doesn't mean you can sit on a couch in Cherry Street and talk a kid down from committing suicide. So those are the folks that I think across every angle that need to be acknowledged, or even helped, or even encouraged, or even scholarship into sitting up at these tables. So just a little bit for you guys to think about as you ask your questions.
Another question from the audience? Oh, go ahead, stand up.
I'm a junior at the high, and I just wanted to talk about how I don't need the microphone, but I just wanted to express how urgent it is for us to need African American teachers, or teachers of color at that, at the high. Studies prove that if at least
Okay, start over for us.
Okay. Wait, is it on?
Yeah, it's a,
Wait, hold on. Hello?
yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm Jada Thompson. I'm a junior at the high, and I just pertaining to the census, we need African Americans in our community to get involved. During the census, I don't keep going on, but there will be a white person that comes to your door, and it's probably uncomfortable. So Black folks, we need to register for the census, so it's more comfortable for us. And so I think that's what's important. But pertaining to African Americans and people of color, we need people of color at Norristown High, because all of the teachers or anyone that participate at the high that's of color, they're subs, they're not teachers. We have I know one Black teacher, and he's for environmental science. But and studies prove that if an African American male has at least one Black teacher in his entire school experience,
That's right.
it's more likely for him to go to college. And
That's
I think
right.
that's super important. So we
Well
need
said.
people to look up to.
Well said. You just gave me. By the way, real quick, what she just said, Erin, do you want to make a comment? She just gave the research that we had about the number of Black teachers, right? Those that are there, especially Black male teachers, and when you have someone that looks like you, the success that it brings, right? And what she just said is what I'm concerned about, that we need to make sure that we have Black and brown brothers and sisters out there doing the census. And there are going to be plenty of jobs to do that. Plenty of jobs to do that. And we need to make sure that we do what she just said, we need to execute it. Well said.
Can we also address this piece
Yes.
though? In 2014, when they looked at the state colleges across Pennsylvania, and
and looked at the amount of students that were graduating, I can't set it on, to go into teaching colleges, to become teachers,
23 of them were teachers of color, of 16,000. When we asked the students in the colleges, I was up at Penn State at the time, why aren't they going into the teaching colleges? They say two things. They're told they're not going to make enough money. And B, they're not encouraged to become a teacher. When they go and say, this is what I want to do. So there are programs now. Sharif Al-Mekki is working on the black male engagement piece in Philadelphia. We're asking superintendents, because for every district that I've been in, I've said to superintendents, go to the HBCUs. If you can't find them anywhere else, they're there. And find out who are in those schools that want to become teachers. Encourage them to come back and be interns in your schools and then hire them. But not only hire them, you really want to make sure that it is safe there for them. When I say safe, I mean this. They can come into the school to teach and be treated like dog poo by their peers. You know, they don't get called for the meetings, they hear about the meetings after the meetings. They don't, you know, so there's a whole lot that goes to this, as to your point, right? There's a whole lot that goes into this. So you may find a teacher of color, and then all of a sudden that teacher of color is gone. And you're wondering, where are they? No one talks about the systemic biases. If the children are feeling it, you know the adults are feeling it, right? That are in these buildings, and you want to work that through. The other thing I'm going to tell you is this. Look at the formula, funding formula. I know I talk about parental peace, but let me tell you, I'm all in it. When Governor Corbett was in office, he had a whole panel to discuss charter schools. They're not funding us because when the schools fall apart, parents choose the option to take their children to the charter maintenance organization. So they're usually run by CEOs of businesses, right? And so the schools, you know, the problem is, and they've always said this, they don't believe that we really should have public education. You should be able to afford to go to school. And this is a conversation that has been going on for decades. We're just now catching up to it. So any way you can help them by showing up to talk about fair funding formula, to make sure that the people that are running for offices are not undercover CMOs for charter schools, that they're really, really consistently concerned about public education. Anywhere that you can write a letter to help them with a policy, to go up to Harrisburg, all of those things make a difference, which is why I'm going to keep saying this. Parents and families are still the most crucial pieces. Your stories mean more than anything else, than any data anybody could push out to them, because they look at the data and they dismiss it. Harder to dismiss a face.
Perfect, thank you.
Leah, if you have to go to Harrisburg with us.
I heard you doing this. Real quick, we have a student here, and then I think I saw the young lady over here.
My name is Matthew McCray, and I'm a junior at Norristown Area High School. I just want to piggyback on what Jada said. There needs to be more diversity in the teachers at Norristown Area High School. We say that we're diverse, but we're only diverse with the students. We're not diverse with the teachers. Students should have the opportunity to be given the right to learn from all races and colors. Some students at the high school have a better relationship with the janitors and the security guards at the high school than the actual teachers. And the janitors and security guards, they say hi to you when you walk into the school, but not the teacher will say hi to you when you walk into the school or say, how's your day? And I believe that mental illness is a really big thing at our high school, and some of the kids at the school, they have disorders and stuff, and mental illness that we all need to talk about, but nobody doesn't want to talk about it. So I think that plays a big factor in the education at the high school. I know everybody in the room believes that we need better education for the high school and for Philadelphia, but there needs to be better education and studies for African American studies at Norristown Area High School and other diversity studies at the high school. I get sick and tired of learning about slavery every single year. I know that there's kings and queens that I know that I should be learning about, and I feel as though there needs to be more studies that could talk about African American kings or Latino kings or kings that we don't know about, but we always had to learn about slavery and Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King, which I know I love, but I know there's all these other people that have helped to make a movement and build the civil rights movement to know that we're here today. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Certainly. So, Jade and Matthew, first of all, thank you for being here and thank you for your voices today. I will tell you that, as I'll speak for myself as superintendent, it is important to me that we hire teachers to represent the diversity that we have in our student body as well. We recognize that we are predominantly white staff. We recognize the challenges, as I think Andrea said, something to the effect of 85% of teaching applicants that are out there right now are white females. Another 7% are white males, and again, that leaves a very, very small pool to go to, and I think we need to find ways to motivate students such as yourselves who want to become teachers, to return back to Norristown and want to be a teacher, and to feel good about the work that you're doing with students. Because to me, Matt, I just want to tell you, like, when you said that you walk by teachers and they don't say good morning to you, like, literally, I just got sick to my stomach. That is just not acceptable. Not in my world, not in any world. Should we have, we talk about family and community and all those things, and it's not okay when, the people that are supposed to be role models to you don't treat you, that they don't treat you the way that they expect you to treat them. Not for 1 second. So to me, work that, certainly I can work with Mr. Roth on, who believes in you guys and wants to have a great setting for you guys as well. So all that to say is, we're working actively to try to get more black and brown teachers in our school. It's an uphill battle, but we're committed to the fight. We're committed to doing some things different to try to get more representative teachers at our high school and our middle schools and our elementary schools as well. The one thing that I'm glad that you brought up, social studies, really, where you talked about the learning of history. This year in our curriculum cycle, social studies was up. We've done English language arts, we've done math, we've done science, in terms of trying to get some alignment in K-12. This year was social studies. And I'll tell you, we probably put more work into revamping social studies this year than we have any other content area, because not to say math is math, but it is. It's formulas and it's numbers and it's all those things. When it comes to history, I think we recognize a really unique opportunity to change the way that history and social studies has been taught. Because traditionally, for a long time, I think all of us that are adults here, when you went through high school, well, we'll just call it what it was, learned history from a very white, from a very Eurocentric point of view, which was how did the whites in Europe kind of colonize America, which is really a story of slavery, and is somewhat a story of, racial, or I shouldn't say racial, religious opportunity. And to me, that very narrow focus also does a major disservice to the other, to blacks and browns and how you came to the, how those people came to this country, your ancestors came to this country, and you didn't learn anything about it. You learned about slavery, and that was it. You didn't learn about, the struggles in whether it be African countries or different Latin American or Latin countries, where our Latinx folks come from. What's their history? What led to them coming here? We all know why Pennsylvania was founded, William Penn and the Quakers, and again, not religious, but we have no idea why blacks settled in Pennsylvania or Latinx settled in Pennsylvania. We really focused on teaching from that multicultural perspective across our social studies curriculum. So I know you guys are, on the little bit upper end of high school, you're not going to get the benefit from it, but I think all of our students are going to get the benefit from a very different learning experience that is much more reflective of who we are as a diverse community here in Norristown.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. We're going to take 2 more questions. One here.
I have a 2-part question. I'm going to direct the first part to you. Where was the communication, emails, voicemails, in regards to the parents of Norristown area school? Didn't get one. The other is, how do we move forward? How do we continue this? How do we keep it going?
So again, thank you for your question. I think one of the things that we've been trying to do since I've been superintendent since August is around communication. We recognize as a district we haven't been as proactive as we should be. We haven't been as communicative as we should be, and we're in the process of changing those things. One of the things that we have invested in recently, we just brought a communication specialist in to make sure that that our website, the frequency of the communication, social media, all looks very, very different than it has in years past. Are we there yet? No. Which again, I think speaks to a little bit of the communication with, for speaking about this event, why it wasn't more broadly done. And again, should we have done something a little more broadly? Absolutely. And again, unfortunately, we can't go back and redo that. I think now that everybody here at the table has gotten to interact a little bit more, and I think we are going to be a tighter group moving forward in terms of the advocacy work that we can do. I think you will not see that, I'll call it a misstep. You won't see that misstep again.
It was huge, like there's powers in numbers and you missed a whole
Absolutely.
group of numbers.
Good point, and I need you to help us to really get the word out and to do that. So I think we're just beginning, and I feel real good. I have 2 more people, and then we do have to cut it off, and I think we're gonna do the raffle. Are you ready, Aaron and Hakeem, to do the raffle? Okay.
Personally, thank you for everyone that's coming out. I'm very impressed to see an informative group of folks, and also that it's an engaged community. What I'm really disappointed is the lack of questions that were asked, because I'm sure we're all angry, but again, it just doesn't start with today. It continues tomorrow, and so on for our future leaders. In terms of consensus, they're currently hiring. Valerie Scott Cooper just had a town hall meeting in terms of the employment of the census. And just to let you all know, the census doesn't really want to know who lives in your household. The importance of it is to gather the correct data so that we can get the proper funding for the education and our community.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me run over here. She's had her hand up for a while.
Thank
Here you go.
First of all, this was great. And with the parent over here, I agree. I think we have to put East Norton, West Norton, and Norristown together more.
Amen.
We are one district, okay? So let's connect. My kid, I live in East Norton, but I'm for the entire district to raise us all up.
Perfect.
To Andrea and Abington, I'm a fellow grad. One thing I think is important, parents that are here, we must talk to our children as well. It sounds like she and her son communicated. And you know, social media has its pluses, but a lot of cons. And things can happen in your school and you have no idea because you know your children are communicating. And that is priority number 1. Then I think we can mobilize, again, as a district. Like this young man said here, I'm proud of you because one day my kids will still be in this district, hopefully, and I need to know that going forward. So I want to thank the young people for sharing their concerns because as a parent, and I started late in the game as a parent, seeing my children grow up, I'm aware of what's happening so that I can continue to advocate. So I just want to thank everyone and the men for having this organization, and again, I think everybody should mobilize, communicate, advocate, and be one piece.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I have a 2-part question. The sheet that the young lady, to me, you handed out, it says the current spending per student in the Norristown area, $17,784. So I guess my first question would be for Brent Bradford. Where does that stand in parallel to like the fact of Upper Marion in a per student manner? And then second part of the question would be, I see it says here that we are 76 out of 500 schools in spending, meaning, you know, it's a pretty good number. We're not on the back end, we're on the front end. So I guess it would be for Superintendent Dormer. Where are a lot of those funds being allocated? Because I've heard twice from people here that, you know, it seems like we don't have funding, but this says otherwise.
One of the things I would point you to, and some of the slides I think indicate this, there are drivers, and you're right, and if you look dollars to dollars, the difference between Norristown and this frankly is the stress that your tax base is feeling. This is why I think that this lady over here who mentions, you know, East and West Norriton, getting folks to understand that issue, you feel people feel like they're being taxed out of their home. We are requiring what is largely a less affluent community to pay much higher taxes in order to keep up with our peer communities. So first of all, there's an equity issue about that. There's a tax effort issue. So we are inflicting more tax pain, for lack of a better word, on a less affluent group in order to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. So that's one thing. But then, even if we come close to spending the same amount, and thanks to frankly, the political courage of the school board that often gets beat up for it, they have shown that willingness to do that because they realize the greater good is investing in these young people. But we have cost drivers, and you saw some of that when they showed what creates the costing out study. What are the factors that cost more money to educate a student? Poverty, a child that grows up in poverty and deep poverty costs far more to educate than a parent or a student whose parents may both be doctors and lawyers and are third and fourth generation college kids. Poverty is a driver. English language learners. God knows we love our new Americans. They're doing a great thing here in our community, bringing energy. But there's a cost to bringing kids up to speed. There's a cost. And to ignore that is to do a disservice. So these challenges, our district, and Dr. Dormer can speak about this, in districts like Norristown, because you do have similarly situated communities, it costs more and you're doing it with less. So the fact that you're getting close to those dollars and cents look very similar, I would say it's a little misleading. In fact, it's not a little misleading, it's very misleading.
Okay, Rico.
Thank you. Just to answer real quick, when you look at our rank of 76, that is kind of irregardless of size. When you look at the 17,000 per, probably puts us more middle of the pack than Brittle would not put us in the top 100 in terms of expenditure. When you look at, and again, this is public information, right now we have about $155 million operating budget. That's this year's budget. That's publicly known. 9% of that is what we would qualify as discretionary funding. 9% of that 155 are those things that we can make discrete choices and to say we want to spend this money this way that has an impact directly on student performance. The other things such as payroll, PSERS, which is our retirement contribution, to put the number out to everybody. One significant driver it's money that we expend annually that doesn't go into classrooms. 37% of our payroll is a check we write to the Commonwealth to pay for the retirement crisis in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I said again, 37% of our payroll is money that goes directly to the state that does not funnel $1 back into our classrooms. Yeah, it takes care of our teachers and our staff members on the long end. But again, you talk about why we have the 76th highest operating budget at $155 million, why we need more, things like that. When 37% of your payroll goes in, when you have, excuse me, when IDEA, which is the federal law around special education, is funded at about 1/5 of what it should be funded, those are local tax dollars, then we have to make up that difference to pay for special education programming. So when you add kind of all of those unfunded mandates up, that's why, very simple, we need more money. As Representative Bradford said, just so that people, we start giving you those talking points about the urgency about children in poverty, require more money to educate. 7 out of 10 students in our school district would qualify for free and reduced lunch if we weren't community eligibility program. So you just talk about numbers. Special education, $30 million of our budget. 1 out of every 5 students in our school district requires special education. 1 out of every 6 students in our district requires English language services. That's where the money goes, and that's why we feel we don't have what we need to kind of keep up, as Representative Bradford said, to meet the needs of our students and to do everything we know that they need and that we want to do to help serve them best.
Thank you. Chris, I have one final question over here.
Can you hear me?
Sir.
Yeah, this is for the superintendent. Yeah, my question is pretty much how are you keeping your teachers with as far as following adaptive support for the children's IEPs and different mental health issues? As this young man said, there's a lot, and you just said pretty much that there's a lot of mental health issues with the students at throughout the school district, and many times I feel as though that I've seen, and a lot of professionals have seen, that a lot of our teachers aren't equipped to identifying mental health issues and actually following through with the IEPs and different programs, and what ends up happening is a lot of issues, and they pretty much spiral out of control, and then it becomes harmful to another student that doesn't have anything to do with the significant situations. Our children have issues with coping skills, and different abuse problems, and if we had a better system, I feel as though we had a better control of it with our educators, that things wouldn't spiral so much out of hand and we wouldn't have so many, pissed off parents and pissed off families, and then they have issues with our faculty and staff. Also, as a young man said, also that was on my list was, what are we doing about pretty much assessing our education, like the technology that we use in the subject matter, and it supports how we educate our children. As he said it, and I was thinking that I had already wrote it before he even mentioned it, which is what are we doing about adapting the material and the subject matter that we use to pretty much educate our children. The same old different things out there, a lot of stuff seems to be outdated, or do we have someone pretty much to sit there and see what's better out there? It doesn't necessarily have to be costly. It's just about someone actually paying attention and being held accountable to seeing what's going to better enhance our students' education and their experience through their education.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll try to answer succinctly because I know we're running short on time. If you were to ask all 500 school district superintendents across the Commonwealth what their biggest area of concern is, their biggest area of need right now is, I think number one, they'd all say budget first. But second, they would say is mental health and mental health concerns that they have across the district. We spend a lot of times when I meet with other superintendents talking about that. And quite frankly, I think when we all went to school, we didn't see the volume of mental health concerns we see nowadays, nor did, quite honestly, were schools ever really asked to be a part of the mental health solution. And now we are. And we recognize that, we recognize that we can keep our head in the sand and just have kids continue to come to school and struggle and not be part of the solution, or we can try to do something about it. We as a district are committed to try to provide teachers at least some initial training on what's called trauma-informed care, so that they can recognize what those triggers are, what those ACEs, those life events that cause kids to come in with mental health concerns, or with those barriers to learning. By that being said, we have a long way to go because again, we're just trying to we're trying to play catch up a little bit with our teachers in terms of just recognizing, and then really the second piece of that, to your point, is how do teachers then adapt for the learners in front of them that may be dealing with poverty and a learning deficit and a mental health concern, and still move them forward on a daily basis. And I don't have all the answers right now, other than systemically, as we talked about, we're year by year we're looking at different content areas. How can we improve the learning experience? How can we increase the rigor? And really by connection to that, how then hopefully do we increase those outcomes? But it really comes down to meeting the individual needs of learners. You talk about technology. We're in year one of a 5-year tech plan to increase dramatically the amount of technology we have in our district, because with that we believe can come individualization for students, can become meeting those individual needs. But we need to continue to develop our teachers so that they know how to use those tools to meet every kid where they're at in a given day and push them forward every single day to grow them towards the outcomes that their parents want.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we have a raffle, and I think the team and Aaron are going to pick numbers or names real quick if we can do that. But I have two final things. One is we really want to make sure we're real clear on what the next steps are. As I walk through here, and many of you said it, don't waste my time today if this is the only one. You were real clear. I got that from the people standing up, right there, her, you, other people here, you. So we need to talk about that. So I'm going to ask Tamia and Aaron to talk about what is next. Not comprehensive, but just overall what's next. The other thing is, I can't get to you unless you sign in and give me your email. I can tell you when we did this at William Penn, when we did this in Yaden, people gave us their emails to Mia and Aaron, so we're able to follow up. We're able to say, look, we're getting ready to move on this. We are able to send them information. So I need everybody here, because we didn't collect, everybody didn't sign in. Please, if you're interested, please give us your information so that we can contact you. Okay, do you want to do the, can I just ask just Aaron and Tamia to comment And so you have people here, and I'm not just saying this, and you know I've never said this, this is the best group. Hakeem, you heard me say that, go ask your legislative representatives. This group is passionate. I hear a lot of people who are proud. I hear people who are like saying, I'm tired of it, I want more. So I'm just telling you from my heart, from the Urban League, I'm terribly impressed. And I will be bragging about you at the National Urban League with Mark Morial, who you see on TV. Anything that happens to anybody, black or brown, they're like, so Mark, what do you think about that? So Mark, what do you say on that one? So I can't wait. And the National Urban League wants to come to Norristown. I just sent an email. They're like, we're ready. What do you want us to do? We will be part of whatever you want. So you now have a whole big national organization that's saying, okay, we're here, let's talk. What are the priorities? So Tamia, can you and Aaron comment on this? Like, what's next? I'll give you that. You want to start off, Tamia?
We're so glad that you're here today. I would say, please make sure that you signed, so we have your email. This is a first touch for the Urban League and for PA Schools work, and we want to keep communicating with you. We want to keep that open dialogue so that we know what your issues are and that we can continue to provide the resources that you need to meet those issues. Tamia, you want to talk about legislative visits?
Sure. The handout that I gave had the upcoming legislative visits.
We can send that out.
We can certainly send it out to you, but again, if you're a student, if you're a parent, if you want to go up there and speak with your legislators about why this matters to you, we're happy to have you. Again, I encourage you to fill out these cards, get them to us today. We will deliver them in Harrisburg if you can't make it up there with us. I also say welcome to Aklamo, who is also now a partner with PA Schools Work. So we'll be doing more type of these activities in the community of Norristown. I also say thank you to Councilman Jones because he's also advocated with us in Harrisburg and is also there advocating for you. So, for the superintendent, we've had like fair funding formula like rallies, and we've done this again and again, and Norristown has always stepped up to the plate and advocated and spoken at those events with us. So you already have a group of people who are very committed and passionate to this community. So we look forward to having more activities like this and getting you all involved because again, without your voices, it doesn't matter.
So I feel like we tentatively answered your question. So let us go back, let us look at the issues and the things that you said, and let us come back and say, here are the 3 things that we need to do. We might ask the superintendent, can you have a town hall meeting a month and give an update on such and such? We might say to the brothers that are here, who are here strong, we need you to help us in this area. So let us all take that back. Tamia and Aaron and I will take responsibility for that. Hakeem, we will work with you, but we need to make sure we pay attention to what we heard today and come back with like maybe 3 or 4 things for us to do. Okay?
All right, so we are through the event. 2 hours goes very quickly, unfortunately. I can see on everybody's faces that we have only brushed the tip of the iceberg. Part of my job as an elected official, as a former Norristown graduate, as a community resident, a parent, I will be raising both of my children in this district. I think it's important that we have these type of events and these type of meetings. It is a good thing that, if we have a new superintendent, there was a 10-year stint with the last administration. However, with every new administration comes an opportunity as well. So one thing we can be happy for is that our superintendent is willing to face the community. He's willing to answer the tough questions. This is not the last meeting we're going to have. We touched the tip. We didn't talk PSSAs. We didn't talk uniforms. We didn't talk redistricting and how do you go to, why certain kids go to certain schools. We didn't talk charter. We didn't talk many things. We didn't talk discipline. We didn't talk placement. We didn't talk a lot. So be patient, as our partners with the Urban League said, as our school district in Aklamo, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. You do now know the process. You do now know that you got a note card. You can write any question. You can even email any questions or inbox them, Facebook to any of us. This will not be the last conversation because there's many more things that we need to address as a community. Yeah, so there is also an opportunity checklist. I'm going to let Erin explain what that checklist is and why it's important.
That's probably in your red bag. If you didn't get one, just let me know and you can get a copy. Yvonne is waving her hand over here in the black and white. But if you want to fill that out and put your email and name on it, please do so that we can have an understanding of what the issues are that are important to you.
Para nuestras personas que hablan español, si ven en la bolsa roja hay un cuestionario. Si no se sienten cómodos de llenarlo ahorita, lo llenamos después en aclamo y después yo se lo mando a Erin. Gracias.
So, if there were anyone who didn't have the opportunity to ask a question, please get with the person who invited you, connect with them, and they will figure out a way to get those questions to us, that they can be addressed. So, it's not easy talking in front of a bunch of people, but if you have something that you want to get out there, please make sure it gets back to one of us, from Men of Excellence. Last but not least, I just do want to thank Urban League for partnering with the Norristown community on this. We've seen the work they do. They're precise, they're prompt, they're on point, their communication's great, and they're all out there for the greater good. So can we give Urban League a round of applause for their work. So we handed out raffles. We have a former high school Norristown graduate, Brian Jablonski, class of 2004. He's also a former Hall of Champions in the district, grew up here in Norristown. He is now a lawyer, works for Ostroff Law. He's always supportive of Norristown and events in the community. So Ryan Jablonski took it on himself to buy some gift cards. All $5 gift cards as we talk about funding and shortage. So you will figure out a way to use $5 at Target or at Wawa. You can get soap, body wash, whatever you want. So we have about 13 gift cards we were going to raffle off. So get your red tickets.